More questions?
First of all, I'm very honored to be here because I'm from Daegu, and I wish to come here to see you.
It's a long trip. You have made a lot of effort.
As I'm become Buddhist maybe several months ago.
Yeah.
So when I see you in a BTN, internet, TV, I really think about I have to see you here. So I'm coming here. Takes a long time.
That's very kind of you. Yeah.
And it's gonna be the question. Before I am Buddhist, I had some suffering with my children because I am the mother of the 3 children. It was a very hard time, you know. It maybe it's 14 years. My eldest one is 14 years.
Girl?
Yes, girl. Yeah. I had so many suffer, and then I think about maybe I can be happy. So I have to looking for around. I don't know, some kind of religion or some kind of meditation. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I just suddenly feel that I have to go to the temple. So
You
I
did?
went there. Yes, I have a big courage.
Good. Very good. You went through the Iljumun. That's one good step.
So I went to the temple. I studied it, and then I think I can control my mind to become a peace and calm. But I can solve the problem. Just one thing, my child. Because this is like a hindrance for me. Because when have arguing with my children, I'm very angry. I can't control my anger. So what should I do when I have anger? How can I control my anger?
So first of all, this mother's anger, you know, it usually comes from this extreme care towards the child. That you want the child to avoid suffering, to have some good life. And not to have the wrong view, but have the right view. But as your children reach adolescence, they start to grow into individuality. They give you such a hard time with this, and it's unbelievable. And every parent goes through this, no exception. So one thing we should realize is that being a parent is a special job. But since most people do this on earth, we don't think of it as really special. But it's a very, very special situation. Why? There's this relationship. One end is you. The other end is your child. Of course, they have siblings, so you have more children. But now just let's talk about one. When she's born, she's totally, absolutely dependent on you. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, in all senses of the word. Baby totally depends on mother and father, gentlemen, so stay home, okay? Just be there. Your child needs your energy. Even if you believe that he or she doesn't understand your speech, they understand. They also perceive whether you had a bad day or a good day. So they also depend on father, but mother explicitly and clearly dependent. So this is how we start as beings on this earth. Then we grow up, 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 and up, and the child also becomes an adult and also becomes a parent. But during this time, the parent above you, think about your mother, think about your father, never really think of you 100% as an independent person, 100% as an adult. They still call you my daughter, which is all right. But the relationship is still almost like this, when you could hardly walk. They want to tell you everything. They want to give you most of the things that you need, small things, of course. And then you feel, as a growing individual, that my parents want to control me. For what? I already understand. Okay? Then the parent says, no, 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 no. You don't understand. But the child says, but I understand. Let me go my way. Now, this is really something that parents don't like to hear. But I have to say it. Let your child go her way. Why? You don't own her. Children are not the parents' property. Second, she has her karma. You have yours. How are people born to each other? Follow the law of attraction. Opposites attract each other. Similarities or identical polarities, they repel each other. You don't even meet. Okay? So you have to accept that your child has opposite qualities, not like you, but in some aspects it's very different. You are similar. Your child is similar to you in a lot of respects, otherwise there would be no balance. So what keeps relationships on constant orbit around each other is the balance of similarities and differences. Think about it. Too many similarities go away. Too many differences come too close and have a collision. Either harmonious, then it's desire type, multiply, men and women. Or anger type, then it's annihilation. Okay? It's very simple. Okay? I'll put this on the board unless I use my other amplifier here. Remember this wonderful chart? That's in your flag, ladies and gentlemen. And on some beverage also. I'm definitely not going to advertise it. It's not good for your body. And the other thing where you have it is an old Taoist wisdom. We treated this last year. We're not going deep into that again. This is the Tai Chi. And when you have just an empty circle, that's the Wu Chi, or emptiness. So this is the form world, the dualistic world, and the Wu Chi is the emptiness, no name, no form, no life, no death. Okay, so we have that concept. Now this is plus, and this is minus, and they can unite in many ways. But there are two kinds, and of course the mixture of the two. One is desire type, then it's multiplying. The other is anger type, that's annihilating. Okay? That's how relationships work. So you should decide what you want. Like soldiers work on a doctrine. This doctrine generates anger because it defines what an enemy is. Enemy vision. If you don't have enemy vision, you don't have a military doctrine, then there is no anger type of relationship, there's no war. Okay? Desire, most people understand that. It's a little tricky, but it works pretty much in the same way. You have a vision of a significant other, of your spouse, of your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And then you want that. And then there is multiplying energy, multiplying care, we call that love, and sometimes it results in a new human being, a child. But your child was born to you so that you would have this specific job of bringing her into adulthood and let her go. You cannot control her life beyond the means that she lets you do that. And that has to be respected. It doesn't mean that you are controlled by your children's karma. I don't mean that. What I mean is that when your child wants to try how hot fire is, stand by with some ointment. You can't pull her hand back. You want to try it? Try it. I hurt my finger, mommy. See? That's what fire is. You don't say, stupid. She wanted to experience fire, she got it. So here's some ointment. This will fix it. Then your child will love you, no matter how bad the experience was. Why? Because, Mommy, I burnt my finger. So, you wanted it, you got it. It's as simple as that. So then the parent is there to help and to help wake up. Because next time, believe me, your child will ask you. Don't tell her in advance. If it's really big harm, of course, prevent and block it. Don't let her experience the power of the KTX just by collision. Board that wonderful train. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And see what it means to ride at 300 kilometers per hour in a harmonious way by being aboard. Okay? So your children will grow up no matter what, and you have to define your relationship, but they will become independent. But until they depend on you, you should be available. And when your children need help, help them. But you cannot put things into their brains which they don't want to hear and they don't want to have inside. So avoid these arguments. Let them have their lives. And stand by with the ointment and the, the bandage and the Band-Aid, because they'll hurt themselves. If they come back to mommy to have some love and to have some care and to fix things up, you're there. Otherwise, you have your life and they have theirs. This does not mean that there is no big family, okay? You care for them, but there is a distance because they are more independent than 10 years before. And this distance doesn't mean separation. Very important. So Korea has this wonderful group culture, but inside this group culture there's a tremendous push. And that's why many people don't want it. But I can tell you, coming from a very individualistic background, not the most individualistic, but it was pretty individualistic, that there's no greater merit to a society than to create harmonious groups where people are having jobs, people serve each other, respect each other, listen to each other, work things out together. But this is not a perfect solution either, but it's much better than isolated individuals walking around believing that they are alone and only institutions can help them. No, people can help each other. And that means group culture. So Korea has this wonderful thing, group culture, but that also sometimes needs a little cleanup, beginning with the family. I mean, it's enough if you have dramas in the television and you watch them as you dress up in the Mogyokdang. That's enough for drama. We don't have to make one in our own home. Okay? But usually we do. We do because we believe there's no other way. But one thing that your child has to learn, and what we have to learn unless we have learned it already, that we always have a choice. Always. Always have a choice. And we have to exercise that. So the best that a parent can do to a kind of growing child is saying what the options are when there is a strong dilemma. Strong dilemma, cannot decide. Your child is, oh, I cannot decide which university to go to. And then you hold her hand because she came to you for advice. You hold her and says, daughter, let's look at these universities because you will experience them. So you go to the campuses and you have a sample. She smells the air, she talks to the students, maybe talks to some tutors or professors. Not just books, not just the internet, experience. And then, oh mom, I like this and this university much, much better because I want to be this. Then you say, okay, then for most part of your adult life, you'll be doing this and this and this. And you take, if she wants to be like a doctor, you take her to a hospital and say, look around. This is what you will be doing. If you become a doctor, you will help a lot of people wearing this white, gown, this outer coat, and you will be a doctor and you'll be dealing with sick people, etc., etc. And don't want them to pass a judgment right then. Especially don't force your judgment on them. Okay? So that their real karma could come out. See, the second battery is gone. Yeah. Okay. So what's going to happen that your child will be able to make the right choice. What is the right choice? The right choice is something that they believe in. But they have to believe in that choice, not based on some ideas, not based on your idea or your husband's idea as father, but they have to have the experience that I want this job. I believe in this lifestyle. I believe in this job. I can identify with that because we all identify with our jobs to a certain extent, to a certain time. So if they make their own choice, then they can never come back to you saying, Mom, see what I've done? You told me. You told me to become a taxi driver and I'm unhappy. Okay? I'm sorry. All taxi drivers are wonderful. So it just came. Somebody makes the choice that they don't want, okay? And then they have somebody to blame. But if it's themselves, then they are again through another wake-up process, okay? So let them help them experience this life. Don't just want to educate them as per your ideas. Especially don't teach them so much good and bad. Let them experience things. It's well within the realm of really human and sane possibilities. We don't spend enough time on that, but we spend a lot of time on discussions. Okay? So that's my humble advice because you know what we are forbidden to do, we soon find a way to do it. Right? That's human. There are myths around it. I mean, if you have a forbidden pear, then soon you eat that forbidden pear and see what happens. It's printed in millions of copies. Okay? So really decide how you want to educate your children, but one thing, let them experience things which are not downright harmful. Okay? If you see that she wants to experience something really harmful like drugs, then let her see the result. Go to a rehabilitation facility. Have her see movies where serious drug addicts are, languishing and dying or doing bad things to each other because of their minds and passion and addiction. Poor people. So then you make her see the result. There's nothing. These days in Hungary, you know what they do? They simulate weekend accidents. We have a special category called discotheque accidents. People go to dance in the discotheque. They sometimes drink or take some pills and they totally lose their minds. Then they sit in the car, go at 160 per hour and crash. And it happens so much, especially in the countryside or in suburbs, not in the inner city. In suburbs, in the country, it happens so many times that we have a special category for it. Okay? And these kids, 16, 17, 18, 19, until the end of their 20s, especially before they are married, it just doesn't click. So what happened in South Hungary after a serious accident like this, where 2 people died, 2 youngsters died, 2 cars seriously crashed, and 2 other people, totally innocent, got injured, and one of them maybe for life, okay? So what they did, they brought out the whole school, the entire elementary and middle school of the area where these guys were living, so that not just them, but the whole friend circle, the entire school, the whole age group, everyone could see what's happening, and they simulated an accident like that. They simulated the crash with, prepared cars. They had stunts. They had emergency helicopter. They had emergency cars. They had police. They had the parents coming up, playing that their children are dead. And that just shocked everybody. And most children were crying. So that experience really, we say virtual reality, but that reality is just as real as anything else, except that the outcome is different. So then we have the experience. We feel it in our bones, in our hearts, in our minds. So configure that experience in such a way that your child gets the message. And then we don't bring up broken karmas. Because by our moves of limiting our children all the time and telling them what's right and what's wrong, we deform their characters. We believe we bring up a good character, but we actually deform that. Okay? So asking the right question, what do you really want? See this? Is this what you want? Asking the right question is better than having an ideology. Okay, so ask the right question and enable your child to ask the right question herself. And then you have really given something to her. Asking the right question is 10 times more important than having 100 smart answers. Okay? More questions? Children question, parent question, short, long, anything. Yes, right away.
Why so many human beings are born? They say born as human body is not easy thing, but why human beings grow bigger and bigger?
In number, you mean?
Yeah.
We may have a lot of guests, you know. So, 150 years ago, we had 1.5 billion people on this planet. Now we have over 4 times as many. We have 6.6. So you can enumerate a lot of material reasons like public health and better lifestyle and urban life and care and all that. But basically, we cannot really answer this question with our thinking mind. Like, you cannot explain to women why 2, 3 children are better than 4, 5, or 6. But we created social conditions that even in Korea these days, 1 or 2, usually 2, that's it. 50 years ago, it used to be not less than 3, but basically 4, 5, and most families had 6. That was 50, 60, 70 years ago, and before the Japanese rule, big families. We created conditions when we care more about our individual being, although here in Korea still within a very broad social context. We care more about our own individual being than procreation. And what's really interesting is that the higher the living standards, the lower procreation is. So this huge boom, which potentially is dangerous, I've already said why, because of our mind quality, doesn't really come from the most developed countries. The most developed countries are steady or slightly declining, like in Europe. That's why in Europe we have immigrants. Okay. In America they also do, but the overall population is not declining. In Europe we do. The old cultures like France, Germany, parts of England, there are less children than before. But there is a phase when from absolute poverty and insecurity they go through the kind of civilization process and they start to work in an integrated manner. There's a national economy, there's more security than before, etc. And then, boom, it appears. You can't stop that. You can regulate that. Like in China, they have very serious laws about preventing overpopulation, and rightfully so. I mean, that's a huge explosion they have over there. You know, already 1.4 billion people. It's very big. But you can't stop that. You can't take away that right from people to have children. Impossible. And it shouldn't be. The real question is, what do we do with this amount of population? Because some people say it's a very big burden on Earth, which is true, but it's also a huge potential. Korea could bring about the 4th largest economy in Asia because of an integrated society which by now, and tell me if my numbering is wrong, but crossed the 50 million mark. In fact, it happened last December, and if the paper was right, it was a national daily in English, which said today the 50th million was passed by the South Korean population. It's 5 times more dense than Hungary. 5 times, because the land area is almost the same. We have 93.4 thousand square kilometers. South Korea has about 105,000. Only 10% difference, sort of. But the population is 5-fold. And the reason why this country can function in the way it does, which is beautiful, because society organizes itself with such standards, with such integration, with such group culture. Okay? If people were fighting in the street all the time, this country wouldn't function. If people didn't agree with each other, if they were always arguing about things, functions, actions, this economy wouldn't go, wouldn't work, wouldn't develop. But because of the social heritage, because of the social integration, because of the culture, it was possible. There are countries elsewhere in the world where the population density is as high as in Korea, but the integratedness of society, the organized nature of society is not nearly as good as in Korea, so they suffer more. There's a lot more anger there, there's a lot more desire there, and there's a lot less function there. Okay? Look around. It's really not up to numbers, it's up to the mind. Up to the mind and the social tradition and the cultural heritage. So don't look at this amount of population as something bad. It's a task. This is something we have to deal with. And it's another urge, it's another push to increase our mind quality. Because if we don't wake up, then a bus with 6.6 billion people crashes a lot harder than with only 1.5 billion. We can do a lot more damage to this earth with 6.6 than with 1.5. We are on our best way to do that, unfortunately. So they also counted that this earth as it is, with its physical potential, with the presence of the 5 elements on this earth, could sustain over 30 billion people easily. If we used energy differently, if we produced food differently, if we didn't destroy the biosphere, if we didn't make so many wars, if we related to each other as individuals and nations differently, if. But we talked about conditioned existence before. We talked about causality before. We talked about emptiness before, meaning that we make everything happen. So what's the hindrance? The hindrance is that there are very few awakened minds on this planet. That's the hindrance. And most people don't want it. That's also a hindrance, but we have to come to terms with that and wait until people really want to wake up. And there's a race with time. There's a race with karma. There's no time to lose. There's no action which should be done in vain. Because if we don't do our best, then what will others learn from us? That is the question. So it's not a lot. We could still have more. But also it's not a little. So how we handle this is really up to us. So everybody here should really aspire inside, should really have this great wish inside, that we would become more clear, we would attain this clear mind and help all beings from suffering. Because without this clear direction, we are unable to help ourselves and other beings. There is no other way. This way can appear in many forms, in many traditions, in many styles, in many practices, but there is no alternative to awakening, no matter what you call it. Okay? So, some people are becoming Buddhist, wonderful. Some people are changing from Buddhism to another tradition. Doesn't matter. What matters, how awakened you are. How much anger, desire, and ignorance you produce. That is the question. How much harm you do to other beings. It doesn't depend on religion. It doesn't depend on beliefs. It doesn't depend on dogmas or doctrines. It depends on you. So wake up. Because when you wake up, then there's less anger, desire, and ignorance. And then we can help each other. Last few questions? Yeah.
One question, sir. You explained, you mentioned about Satra Pundarika parables.
Hoo-ha! What did I say?
And the children in the burning house.
Finally, it's translated. Thank you. Yes.
But I thought about that. The children will not go out by themselves. A father or the Lord come inside and persuade them because they did not recognize that the house is burning.
Some children can be persuaded, some cannot. You know that from your own life, right? Some people are not grown enough, like children, they are not grown enough, so they can be just carried out. But big kids with a strong will, they are attached to their toys, they are attached to their game. Those big kids are adults, they're us, okay? So, yeah, the house is burning. The children are playing. Some can be persuaded, there should be an effort to do so. But if they cannot, then, like I said, when our mother from Daegu asked this question, then let them burn their little finger. Don't let them harm themselves too much. But let them experience that. And if they do, believe me, they are just as human as we are. No difference. Then, boom, immediately they want to become free. So, don't be afraid of experience or the outcome of that experience, but never lose that direction that you have originally chosen as a human being. Don't let that experience divert you from the highest of the aims that you put for yourself on your existence's horizon. Don't lose your morning star, okay? Because that's not really chosen. Chosen is see the star, okay?
But sometimes I think I face some problems. There is some differences between the Buddhist Prajna Paramita and the Western wisdom. Have you ever think about that?
Yes, it's my problem too. We are lucky, you know, because there are these differences. You know, if you read Western philosophy, it's very different from what you read in the sutras. And it's wonderful, you know, because each culture has its own effort, has its own merits, has its own shortcomings. I mean, if you look at the Tripitaka, most of the texts were actually not spoken by the Buddha, and we know it. They are commentaries, they are later kind of additions, they are kind of summaries in the way the Buddha never spoke. We know that. But they are useful. And if there's just one person who can find a way based on them, they have already been, you know, used well. Western thought is actually very good. You know why? Because it's so stubborn. It's so stubborn about the self, you know. Until the 1960s and 70s, where things were really changing. For the previous 2,000, but even more, 3,000 years, you know, think about the Greeks, not just the Romans, the notion of the self was something which could not be altered, which was controlled by a higher power or higher powers, monotheism, polytheism. We had several versions of it. We have a very stubborn dualistic thinking. Some parts of it, you know, remains active to the present day. Look at the result. The result was countless wars, including 2 world wars in the last, you know, 100 years, coming all from Europe, from our great civilization, from empires that we are so proud of. What did we really do to this world? What did we export? We didn't export cars, LCD screens, computers. We exported wars, colonialism, materialism, It's really stubborn belief in the self as an ego, as an unalterable entity created by something or somebody up there, which has a different control system than you or us could access and use. That's the result. Okay? So, what did Asia do? The last 2,000 years, you know that better. It had its own wars, its own infight things, but it wasn't exported so much. Okay? There are wonderful movies made from Korean history, Chinese history, Japanese history, Mongolian history, wars, problems, etc., etc., etc. But we didn't carry it, Asia didn't carry it around the whole world until about 100 years ago. Then it started because Westerners started to interact a little more. So basically, Asian culture, because of Taoism, Buddhism, all these mainstream big schools of thinking, they were always more introvert because you always looked inside. Korea was called the hermit kingdom for hundreds of years because it was not interested in the outside world, except when they imported kimchi. That was a different story. That was a big acquisition, right? So, to tell you the truth, because of the underlying religious stream of thoughts and beliefs, every single country or every single great culture had a little different approach towards the self, towards the group as society, and also towards the world. Okay? So, the West had a very expansionist policy even in the last 2,000 years. Look at the Vikings. The Vikings went to America way before Columbus. The largest empire was created by the Brits, and some other European nations followed in Africa, South America. What the Spanish did to South America is not forgotten for a long time. Also what the Brits did, in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and other areas in the world like South Africa, that's also not forgotten so easily. It's there in people's minds. They don't say it anymore. So what do we do to the world? It really depends on what we think about me as a person and what we think about the other people and the world. So that's why our views really need some upgrade. What we truly are, what kind of way we follow, what kind of persons or people or culture we perceive around us, and what we think of as the world. Okay? So that helps. Of course, thinking will be always different, because even your thinking and my thinking, but we are much closer than two continents, will be always different, and rightfully so. Religions will always be different, and rightfully so. Nobody should take that away. So when people talk about the harmony of all religions, very important. But then each religion must really understand what it is. The followers must really attain what is the substance of that. And we got that substance as an experience, as a clear thing, then harmony is possible. Without that, just one idea fights another. And then harmony will never come. True harmony. Okay? So, I very, very much appreciate that all of us gathered here tonight. And I wish to see you next week also. Thank you very much for your effort, for your clarity, and for your open eyes and ears. Good night, everybody.